I'm Paul Arnold. I'm a stuttering professor and I'm an ex-strategic communications planner, and I run loads of workshops about communications, and in particular one of the biggest ones I do a lot of work on is about writing briefs. Now, so for some of you who are not so much writing creative briefs, don't worry, this is as relevant for you because it's all about the ability to write a clear brief, because we're all project managers, right? No matter what job you do, you're rewarded if you get things done on budget, on time, on brief. And you often have to brief other people. So the people who actually get projects running really well tend to get promoted, and the ones who don't, well, they get left on the sort of sidelines of the organization. So whatever you do, you've got to know how to write inspiring, clear briefs. So I want to go through about 10 different principles just to help you write clearer, better briefs. So the first thing to say is write first time. We're in an era these days where time is a major competitive edge. We don't have time to do our thinking through the executional process. We've got to spend time. So invest in time up front. And why I say that is because, and this, excuse me, I'm not a golfer. So, but you think about a golf swing. You do a little bit of nuancing at this bit, and then by the time you've driven it all the way down the fairway, you know, you could be 300 feet to one side or the other side. And that's what happens in creativity. Creativity always accentuates what you've gone and given them. So you've got to make sure you get it right. That's why we always talk about this idea of, of tight loose. Be really tight upon what you're trying to get done. And then you can be loose to allow the creatives to do something amazing and really give you the added value you need from your creative teams that you're working with. The other thing about the brief is, don't forget the brief is a contract. It's a contract with the agency or a contract with other people about this is what you're doing. So make sure you understand that. And if you're on the flip side of it, you know what you've got to make sure of? You've got to make sure you agree with that brief up front. So maybe you need a 24-hour period, but you must give people permission to reject the brief. Because if you don't, you are just holding yourself a hostage to fortune, because you could be ending up thinking, well, this isn't a very good brief. Well, it's a bit late now. So make sure you allow that to be done. The other thing you've got to remember is actually, if you're talking to anyone, they've got multiple projects on. Creative teams have got multiple, projects they're working on and multiple briefs. And you've got to be competitive. Your brief has got to be the one they're going to pick up and say, that's the one I want to work on today. So you've got to make it inspiring. And with anyone, they've got to be inspired. And if you want a really great idea, you've got to put a great thought and a great provocation into your brief. Boring briefs, by and large, leads to boring work. So actually, I challenge you to be braver in your writing of briefs. And the other thing I would say about this thing is, we got to be really focused. These big flabby fat briefs are no good for anyone, and they're just showing your inability to do the strategic thinking. If you don't do it, trust me, your creative team will do the strategic thinking for you. And who's the one who's really responsible for the brief that you're working on? It's actually you. So you've got to take the strategic reins of this and be disciplined enough to say, I'm going to focus on that. And target audience wise, be very clear, very focused. The more focused you are, the more specific you can be. The more specific you be, the more likely you're going to cut through. Bear in mind the whole cacophony that's out there that you're trying to compete with. I was briefing one creative team once, and the team said, so Paul, have you spoken to your mum about this? I said, cheeky buckets, I don't need to speak to my mum about the briefs. I said, no, because I don't think your mum would get it. And I thought, mad culpa, good point. I'd written a brief that was far too clever, and actually, at the end of the day, a lot of the stuff we're doing is to talk to normal human beings. So actually make sure that you are keeping your consumer, your target, whoever it happens to be, in mind. One of the very powerful tools I use all the time is something called the task map. And the task map is a very simple process of logging think, feel, do. And what I do is I think, having identified my target, what do they currently think and what do I want them to think? What do they currently feel and what do I want them to feel? And what do they currently do and what do I want them to do. And then basically what happens is that creates a bridging point between the current think and the future think, the current feel and the future feel, the current do, the future do. And I've just got to work out, well, how am I going to make that transition? And that lies at the very heart of the brief. Then we get to the proposition. You've got to be very strictly focused and brutally focused on being very single-minded. Why? Because research has shown that actually you are 7 times more effective if you try and say one message than try and say 2. So the next time your boss says, oh, could you put another message in? Say, sure, I'll put another message in. Give me 7 times the old budget. You know, it's not going to work. So we've got to be really focused. Now, how do you know if you're in a good brief? Well, frankly, because you would know exactly what to go and do. If you were to actually say writing any creative ideas, you know how to pick up the paper. You're already spilling with ideas. And if you're not the creative person and you can think of lots of ideas, it's very likely that they're going to think of 25, 50 times more ideas than you, and all of them will be better ideas. And the last thing is, don't forget, the briefing is as important as the brief itself. Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to get our idea, which we're formulating in our head through the briefing. We've got clarity there. It's to like take that out of our brain and put it into their brain. And if you can do that and they say, got it, know what I have to do, that is the most powerful thing out to do. And I remember someone telling me about a Sainsbury's brief, a very, very successful brief, which is all about this very simple idea about encouraging people to put one extra item into the basket. And actually the creative director said that was the most powerful brief I've ever been given, because I know exactly what I've got to go and do. So good luck with your brief writing, and I hope this has been a useful thing. And as always, if you want me to go and do a whole workshop, of course I'm free to help. Take care.